Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, discussion that comes to us from the 1800s, the early 1800s, from George Gordon Lord Byron. The poem in question, She Walks in Beauty, and it reads as such. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, that smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. So there's one word here that always trips me up when I read this poem, and I'm going to read it again, because I bet if you really think critically about someone who is describing a love, you'll be able to pick out that word. And I'm not just questioning that word because we are in such craven times. I'm questioning that word choice because of what it actually means. She walks in beauty. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and in her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. I must say it's eloquently written, if even a bit nauseating. But I'd like to have a conversation about that last word. Innocent. What is meant by the author with that phrase, with that precise word choice? A heart whose love is innocent. Innocent of what? Innocent according to who? Innocent by whose fault? A love that's innocent? Is there a love that is not innocent? If it is not innocent, is it really love? A rose by any other name, right? I don't think innocent is quite what's meant at all there, even if its implication is assumed. Innocent reflects back onto the last line of verse 2, how pure, how dear their dwelling place, and again back onto the last line of verse 1, which heaven to gaudy day denies. This is an innocence in biblical terms. This is a love innocent of lust. But innocence, true innocence, really is something closer to ignorance, is it not? To be innocent, a heart whose love is innocent, sort of implies a lack of being able to empathize with something that is not innocent. Because if you can empathize with that which is not innocent. I deign to say that it is not the type of innocence spoken of by George Gordon Lord Byron here. And besides, speaking outside of these craven times, I'm not talking about lust and sex and bright lights and whatever you kids do these days. Innocence, in and of itself, sort of speaks to a lack of experience. Who once, I'm assuming we're talking about a life partner here, right, Lord Byron? Who wants a life partner that's innocent? And again, innocent of what? On what level? Whose love is innocent? This idea of a love which is not innocent is something with which I think the modern mind, I won't say begs to toil, but I will say that it is something that seemingly has a pedestal separate from romantic love. If you did not know any context of this poem, mightn't the words herein be written for one's sister or daughter? If it was not assumed that there was some romantic entanglement, what phrasing herein would separate it from it? She walks in beauty like the night. That seems fine. Of cloudless climes and starry sky, da da da, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. That's a little weird. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. The implication of the night there makes it a little weird, but it doesn't mean anything nefarious necessarily. Not like Wild Nights by Emily Dickinson. There is sort of a there is a tinge to Wild Nights by Emily Dickinson, which is sort of it's curious, right? And the curiousness there, I think, leads to something more of a romantic connection. Versus here, which heaven to gaudy day denies. All right, there's nothing particularly romantic there. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thought serenely sweet express, how pure, how dear their dwelling place, how pure. Well, that whole verse sounds very much like something one would hope to be able to say about their daughter, hope to be able to say about their sister. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, nothing weird there. The smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. Yeah, I think that would pass the test. A little weird, but nothing cringeworthy, I don't think, in that sense. So I'm left still wondering about that claim of innocence, about that wish for innocence. And it's a product of the time, right? It is because at this point in time, but it's not true. It is in itself the romantic claim that women were ornamental. Women at this time were not ornamental. Women at this time lived very hard lives. Women at this time. So here's what it always makes me think of. I'm not a biblical scholar, okay? So I might be wrong. If someone wants to throw some citation out there and prove me wrong, so be it. But in the Bible, the injunction against homosexuality is stated something to the fact of a man may not lay with another man in the way that he lays with a woman. Something like that. Something roughly along those lines. But it doesn't say anything about women. Which means one of two things. Which means, if you're assuming that God exists, the lesbians have hid it really well from him, considering he is all-knowing. That's number one. Or two, hey, he's totally cool with it. What it says to me is, the people who wrote the Bible, men, simply were not privy to these things. It is undoubted that at the time where the Bible was penned, there would have been women loving women. Would have been there. Would have happened. Would have been real. That's a reality. So if the guys who wrote the Bible just didn't know about it, they wouldn't know to include it. This, wishing for an innocent love, strikes me as something very much along those same lines. A lover who seems to be innocent, by all those metrics one might measure, might just be a liar. Do you really want that innocent lover? Do you really wish for that innocence? Because it might not be in an honest fashion. That's all I have for this poetry discussion. If I can keep tearing down love poems in some way, I hope that is what the culmination of my life's work becomes here on YouTube. If you like this sort of thing, it really helps me out here on the channel. If you do, hit that like button. If you have found this video by chance but not design, and you are not subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button, because talking about poetry, talking about short stories, talking about novels is what I do on this channel. And if you like this sort of discussion, consider coming back for some more.